Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Lamb, your AOTA president, and I would like to take the opportunity to welcome you all to August's AOTA Membership Appreciation Plus call. These calls occur monthly as we are working to provide you with members with necessary information to inform your practice. For those of you who might be hearing static on the line, I would encourage you to make sure that your mute buttons are on your phone lines, and that should help to keep background noise down. This evening's session is being recorded and will be available later in the week on AOTA Learn. So please check the website for details on how to access the recording as well as your free CE for tonight. I would also encourage you to use the chat box that you can ask questions on throughout the presentation. We will answer all of the questions at the end, and I would just tell you as well that the slides from tonight will be available for download at the end of the webinar. Also, you can mute lines up on the top if you need to. All right. I think we may have resolved the issue. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Really appreciate it this evening. Tonight, we are very excited to be talking with you. Our topic tonight is Paving the Path for Occupational Therapy's Future, Mentoring as a Tool for Leading Change. And tonight, I'm joined by several of our colleagues who are going to share their perspectives on mentoring from a personal as well as professional background, and then also talk about paying it forward and what we can do to help mentor others during these times of change. So there's certainly, I think most of us tonight could probably agree that change is surrounding all of us as occupational therapy practitioners, students, educators, and researchers. And we have changes happening in systems, in society, and that's really probably the one constant that we have right now is change. But how we respond to change can vary. Some of us may choose to step forward and say, what can I do, and try and take a leadership role during times of change. Others of us might feel like we're being pushed into change, whether we want to go or not. Somebody is behind us, and they're pushing us forward, whether we feel ready. Others might be the spark for change and pushing the button that creates the spark that allows change to occur. Some of us may be in positions where we feel that we're moving forward to change, and yet there's a lot of resistance, and we're dragging people sort of through with us. And then there's others who maybe decide to make that leap and are willing to take the risk to try and use this opportunity of change to create something better and something different. And that's, I think, all of these things, it's recognizing the importance that these are experiences that we all have. In certain parts, we may have experienced change differently, and so recognizing that is important, and recognizing that change is occurring is also important for us, as well as controlling how we can respond to some of those changes. During times of change, vision is incredibly important. It's important to know who you are and where you're going. What is your value? What do you bring forward? And this is where AOTA's Vision 2025 can be very helpful for the profession of occupational therapy. Vision 2025 states that occupational therapy maximizes health, well-being, and quality of life for all people, populations, and communities through effective solutions that facilitate participation in everyday living. And one of the things that when we were in the process of crafting and testing Vision 2025 and soliciting feedback from practitioners, students, educators, researchers to give us input about this vision, one of the things that really resonated here was how this particular vision resonated with practitioners, frontline practitioners who were seeing people day in and day out looking to be able to improve what it is that we can offer as we're trying to help enhance quality of life for people, populations, and communities, and identifying those effective solutions that can facilitate people's ability to participate in the everyday life. So vision is really important, and in times of change, vision is good to be able to go back to think about then how to move forward. It's also really an opportunity to think about coming together, finding avenues that you can be a change agent. Different settings may provide you different sorts of opportunities for how you can be a change agent, looking and listening for things that your organization is wanting and saying occupational therapy can help with that. Readmissions are an issue in our hospital. Occupational therapy can help with that. Let me tell you how. Strategizing with others to overcome barriers and thinking about how do we utilize this as a way to be able to move forward. This is really important when you think about teamwork and connecting with others and being able to really identify multiple avenues that you might be able to use to move forward. I really can't overestimate this important concept of building each other up. This is something that's so important, and especially right now when there's so much change happening, is to really build each other up and not take people down. So to say, that's a really great idea. I think that this might be a way that you can move that forward. Or, I understand what you're experiencing. Let's talk about how we might be able to work together to be able to make that happen differently. And so those are really important pieces that we can think about as we continue to drive forward. And then for some of you who may have listened to my presidential address or may have been with us in person in Philadelphia in March, I talked about creating an occupation circle, a way that we can support each other in whether they're wanting to try and bring occupation back into a setting that has maybe deviated away from occupation-based practice, or maybe they're wanting to position occupational therapy in a non-traditional area of practice or in a part of the community that hasn't been able to experience what we have to bring to the table yet. And this is a real opportunity for us to come together. And mentoring can be a key part of this. Those of us who may have had experiences where they can be of value to others, we can mentor other people to do the same. That helps them to have more satisfaction in their work, as well as being able to meet clients' needs in new and different ways. So it's a really great way to think about giving back and paying it forward. I really love this quote by John Crosby, that mentoring is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. And that's what I believe you're going to hear tonight. You're going to hear my co-presenters really talk to you about mentoring and how it's come to fruition for them. Sometimes it's picking up a phone and calling someone and asking them some questions. Sometimes it's just saying, I just need someone to listen to me, and we find our solution while we're talking. And sometimes it's that person to say, you know what, it sounds like you know exactly what you need to do, and I'm behind you 100%. And just knowing that that person is behind you 100% helps you feel more comfortable to take that risk and step forward into perhaps what might seem to be unknown. So with that, I'm going to transition it over to our my first co-presenter this evening, Karen Jacobs, who is joining us from Boston University, and I'm going to turn it over to you now, Karen.
Thank you, Amy. So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to share my insights. And I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do some storytelling. Mentorship has been very valuable to me throughout my career. But I want to start in my early years. I think most of you have heard of the book, Everything You Need to Know. I really learned in kindergarten, or all I really need to know, I learned in kindergarten. And that's me in kindergarten there. I learned a lot in kindergarten that carried me into my later years of becoming an occupational therapist. And I think that those different points that are discussed in that book are really important to mentorship. Some of them are, share everything, play fair, don't hit people, put things back where you found them, clean up your own mess, don't take things that aren't yours, say you're sorry when you hurt someone, and when you go out in the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. For me, that planted the seed that I needed to reach out to people as I began my career. So occupational therapy for me was a second career. And as I entered occupational therapy, a program at Boston University, I was an entry-level master's student in 1977 to 79. I actually set some goals for myself. I didn't have a mentor, and I set these kind of grandiose goals, but I wasn't sure how I was going to achieve them. So the first goal was to write a book. Wasn't quite sure what the book would be about, but I saw that all of my professors had their names on books, and they were writing things. They were contributing to the body of knowledge in occupational therapy. They were my role models, but I didn't reach out to them. I watched them from afar. I wasn't sure exactly how to reach out to them. A second goal that I put down was that I wanted to get those letters after my name, F-A-O-T-A. All of my professors, again, my role models, had those letters after their name, and I wanted them also. But again, I didn't know how to reach out to them. And then the last one, which you may find is even more bold, is I wanted to be president of AOTA. So I set these goals for myself, but I wasn't sure how I was going to get them. So in this early career time period, I began to volunteer. I contacted the Massachusetts Association for Occupational Therapy. I said, I'm a student at Boston University. I really want to get involved in occupational therapy. And they invited me to join and help out at the conference. So making that first phone call sort of broke the ice in me reaching out and asking for help. How could I achieve the goals that I wanted, but how could I, more importantly, contribute to occupational therapy? That led into me running for president of the Massachusetts Association for Occupational Therapy, which allowed me to participate more actively in the AOTA conferences. And that's where I met Carol Gwynn at AOTA. Carol Gwynn was one of my early mentors. I was very determined to really become much more active on a national level. And Carol Gwynn really helped me. She gave me advice. She pushed me in some ways into taking risks that perhaps at that moment were really scary for me. But I could go back to her and say, is that the right move for me? Could you, help me navigate, the system? That was when I was looking at, being, providing service to the community, providing service to AOTA and to MAOT. At the same time, I was growing my own career as a scholar practitioner. And I was active in the area of pre-vocational and vocational education in my first job right out of graduate school. And I remember looking at the evidence literature, and the name that came up all the time was Florence Cromwell. She was an idol to me. I decided to take a risk. I actually called her on the phone, and I said, I am really just beginning my career, and I really need a mentor. I need a mentor to help me in the area of understanding pre-vocational and vocational education. And, might you be able to support me? That was gutsy. I can't believe I did it in retrospect. And she said yes. And in my early career stage, Florence mentored me, and I can attribute many of the writings. My first book, in fact, was dedicated to her on pre-vocational and vocational education and work assessments. I can attribute it to Florence, who said yes and gave me the courage to really move forward in this area. So as my career progressed during what I call my middle career, and even at the beginning, my colleague Nancy McRae, who's at the University of New England, And at the same time, when I was president of the Massachusetts OT Association, she was president of the Maine Association, and we decided to start a mentoring group with another president from New Hampshire, and that lasted many decades. These middle career mentors, we started beginning to mentor each other, and I think that that's an interesting transition because we began to push each other to really begin to have stretch goals for each other, to give each other feedback. We started writing chapters. We started writing articles. It was really exciting to begin to see how far we could go with these different areas that we were interested in. And then my scholar practitioner area growed with a mentor group that I was in with Diane Asia and Diane Hermanow. And we ended up doing different presentations. And in fact, I think we grew even more by pushing each other, by being in the same area, taking risks, but always building each other up and helping to grow each other. That was very, very important. So some of the things that I'm talking about in this mid-career are to be clear about your goals. Really, write them out. I think that's very important. Set big goals for yourself. I set big goals for myself. When I look back, I sort of say, how did I even think about doing that? But I was so inspired by the people surrounding me, but I didn't know how to reach out to them. Choose to lead. I think that's extremely important. Plant lots of seeds. Maintain optimism. Develop a network, and you're getting a sense that I have a network developing here with these individuals. You want to cultivate credibility. You want to walk the talk. And I remember when I was AOTA president, when it started in 1998, I really wanted to do some different things like our Healthy Backpack initiative. And it was really important for me to walk that talk. I challenged people at that time to think about approaching their local access cable television shows, stations, to set up a video, a TV show, a local access show. And I remember at that time, I didn't know anything about it, and I started a show called Lifestyle by Design, which is broadcasted now again, and started in 1998, ran for 5 years, took a little break, and is now back on the air. So again, one of the things that I found with mentoring and being mentored is to really challenge yourself, but to walk the talk. Very important. So in my current decade, I've been part of occupation circles, and it's really paying back. You know, I'm in mentoring groups where we help each other. And one of the groups that has been so important to me is our OT for OT group. And these are occupational therapists from around the globe, and we come together to really work together to help promote the use of technology. And you may be familiar with our OT24VX, and we are in our 7th year of doing that. It will be on October 27th, and I hope you'll join us. Again, we decided that helping people, helping occupational therapists become more comfortable with technology, and that was what we work on in our OT for OT mentoring group. Some of you are familiar with the Boston University online post-professional doctorate in occupational therapy, and the people who are part of that, particularly the people who are off-campus faculty, we started our own group of mentoring, and we've called it an occupation circle as well. And in this group, we have pushed each other to do research, to write. We mentor each other on how to be better teachers. How can we teach more effectively online? You'll see some of our presentations at the AOTA conference and other conferences. We encourage each other to share and to really push ourselves beyond our comfort zone. And I think that's very important when you're with a mentor, to share maybe what you're apprehensive about, and to ask your mentor, how can you expand further? Our occupational circle has expanded further too, and we've invited other people to join, and I think that that's really important. We are able to bring in other people to help them understand how to be mentors, how to mentor each other, how to be agents of change. And we've used our post-professional OTD program as a way of mentoring each other, and we're constantly thinking about other topics that we can use that we can help with each other. And one of the topics that we're building a really, I think, strong evidence-based is how can you better peer-to-peer mentor in an online program. And so we've been conducting research in this area, and based on that research, we're going to be able to create an online training program for the students to peer mentor each other better. And so I think that that's become a really important area. As my career evolves, giving back is so important as a mentor because I have so many people to thank on the road in my own career. So one of the areas that I've been using mentoring to promote occupational therapy, I think in maybe new and emerging or areas, is to write children's books. And I co-author all of these children's books with occupational therapy students or occupational therapists or other colleagues as well. In fact, I've done it, written one of the books with my son and daughter-in-law. And why do we do these books? Well, the beginning of the book actually started during my Slagle lecture, again challenging myself, could I co-write a children's book that introduces occupational therapy and describes characters in the book as children with disabilities and accurately portrays them with disabilities. And that was our first book, How Full is Sophia's Backpack. 13 books later, I have been mentoring and working with occupational therapy students and occupational therapists, and even a health science student to write these books. And they're on all sorts of different topics, like how do you explain dementia to a child? And how do you help a child who's nervous about the first day in kindergarten and the child has an attention deficit? How do you do that? How do you help a child understand what hippotherapy is, or even stuttering? So it's been great, and this has been something that's been very important to me in helping to promote occupational therapy. So as I conclude my journey of my lived experience of being a mentor and being mented and mentoring and in the future, I think that this quote is very appropriate, and I'll read it to you. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has a cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. I want to thank all of those mentors and the ones that I continue to work with for lighting the flame within me. I am very happy to now turn over this webinar to a dear friend, Melissa.
Thanks, Karen. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Melissa Tilton. I'm an occupational therapy assistant in the Boston area, and I want to speak with you this evening about the impact of mentoring and how we can really bring it home for ourselves, both personally and professionally. And one of the things I want to speak with you all about is, why did I seek out a mentor? Why did I seek out being part of a mentorship relationship? And so many of the things that really stood out to me were things that Amy and Karen both spoke to. That encouragement, having somebody that can give you a little boost when you need it. It's so important that we all recognize that we have tough days. We give an awful lot to a lot of people as occupational therapy practitioners and educators. So it's really important to have that safe person where you can just talk about things, get some reassurance, have somebody say to you, you could have done it like this, Melissa. Perhaps you could tweak this next time. Also, when you're in that mentorship relationship, it's really important to have support. So many of us have had a rough day. How do you get through that rough day? How do you learn from whatever experiences occurred? And having that opportunity of a support person versus your supervisor or your boss allows you to be a little bit more transparent have a little bit more safety asking questions at times. Another reason is being able to bounce ideas off of another person. It's great to just brainstorm over a cup of tea, sharing ideas. This is how I work with that patient. This is what I've done with splints. This is how I use evidence-based practice. And, oh, gosh, I had not thought about that. So being able to, go back and forth without having any worries, again, of, is this my work relationship versus my mentorship relationship. And additionally, it's so important to have someone to challenge you, to be able to take that next step. Many of us can very easily get into a rut in our everyday life, and we need to be able to spark that fire of what brought us to occupational therapy. And through a mentorship, you're able to do that for one another. You're able to say, I think you can go ahead and do that. I think you should try. Why not put yourself out there? Why not try? And just tonight, coming on to this webinar is so important for all of you in your mentorship. So having somebody that encouraged you to hop on this evening is so very, very important. And when you're able to either receive that or give that encouragement, I think it'll help you grow in both manners. Additionally, one of the biggest impacts of mentorship is our own professional development. We're all in a very busy world with many, many changes, and we're needing to find out, what is it that I can do in my everyday work life? So one of the things that I've had great luck with, and I'm sure many of you as well, is finding a mentor who challenged me to go back to school. And that going back to school could be a course, it could be an AOTA conference, an online webinar, it could be going back for a different degree. For me, it was going back to school knowing that I am an OTA through and through, and I wanted to continue my education. However, I wasn't wanting to be an OT. So I needed to have a safe mentor who could challenge me and help me figure out what was it that I wanted to do. I knew that I needed to continue and learn so that I could be a better leader and a better teammate and a better clinician. So I had to first identify what was of value to me and really start asking those questions. There's some great tools out there where you can identify what is it that you want to do, what values do I need to bring, what things do I want to change, what do I want to learn about, and then, what do I want to do with this new knowledge? It's great to learn. It's great to identify I want to learn something, but how could I use these new bits of knowledge to have better outcomes? How can I have better outcomes with my clients, with the students that I'm teaching? How can I have better outcomes for myself in the areas of work-life balance, pleasure with your everyday job duties? How could I have better outcomes with what my clients are doing, seeing the progress and the happiness that they're having? So I really thought that that's where I needed to hone in was what do I want to do with this knowledge and how is it going to change my practice? So I really worked with my mentor to focus on the clients first and foremost. For me, I really wanted to be able to take this new knowledge and going back to school and understanding really what was evidence-based practice, what went into it, what did all the statistics mean? How can I use that new language in order to be able to share with my clients, in order to be able to change a treatment that I might be providing, in order to have a better supervision conversation with an OT that I'm working with, having more confidence in using that knowledge. Additionally, I wanted to use my mentorship to help me with my peers. Having the ability to work together with peers and think strategically. Everyone, again, gets into those ruts. So what is it that we can do with new knowledge and new education to be able to plan and focus and make changes in our careers? And that was really a big piece for me. I'm a person who needs to be with others, so that ability to share my knowledge and also learn from them, I could still keep working on this through continuing my education. Additionally, the mentorship for professional development helped me identify opportunities for change. Things are always changing, as Amy alluded to in the beginning, and we're always working in a world of new ideas, new information, and I need to be able to take that information and share it with my teammates and those on my team, and I need to be able to teach them the why behind things. So having further education and having a mentor that I could brainstorm and also role play how I was going to explain something of change or be a change agent so that somebody had the background was a real helpful skill for me to develop. I was able to learn how to tailor my messages so that everybody was able to hear the same thing, but in the way that worked for them and their ability to process, their ability of what's of value, what was the carrot for them. Additionally, I was able to take this, going back to school and taking my mentorship and helping me with roles at work so that I could have new opportunities. That confidence, that knowledge, that person pushing me along the way helps me to raise my hand and say, oh, I'll give that a try. I'd be willing to try that, or I'd be willing to chair that small group at work, or I'd be willing to, learn how to do different reviews. And I think that was a great filling my bucket for me in a professional development sense. Additionally, being part of a mentorship, and probably one of my favorite things is the ability to give back. When I'm able to give back, I feel like I am more engaged, and I feel like I am able to get more out of every single day, and I'm able to be more open to receiving more out of every single day from the other people I'm with. And so, when I've had mentors who say, you know what, go ahead, Melissa, jump in with both feet. Look at things that are listed for OTAs, but also look at those things that don't specifically stay OTA. So they encouraged me to take those risks and jump right in and say, I think I could do that, or I don't know that I could do that this year, but if I worked on A, B, and C, I could absolutely do that next year. And that was really important to me. Also, when you're having that aspect of mentorship and that giving back, I was able to give back to myself by being more confident and making an elevator speech for me. We all do elevator speeches about occupational therapy. But what was it about me that I could bring to the table? What was there of benefit or things that I needed to improve upon that I could bring to the table and say, gosh, I would really like to be able to do this with you. And this is so important professionally. It's that opportunity to give back. So many of you, you're fieldwork educators. That's an opportunity to give back. Those are the things that are going to fill your bucket back up and continue that 360 relationship of giving and also receiving. I also wanted to be able to give back to myself and to my community by challenging the status quo. I wanted to be able to look at where I could make a difference. Where are there places that I could brainstorm with people and talk about ideas or strategies or thoughts in a safe environment? And that was really important to me so that we could continue to grow as clinicians and professionals together. And then I also wanted the opportunity to share my knowledge with my teammates, both those that may report to me and also my peers. We have to have that ability to be able to grow together. And I found through my occupation circles of mentorship that if I was able to take a little bit when I'm with other people and also give back, it encourages that next person. And I was finding that it was a ripple effect. And every time somebody else reached out to another person was in our occupation circle and being together, which was very, very powerful for each of us. And typically gave me more than I had even thought I would get out of anything. Another impact of mentorship I wanted to share with you all was the personal development. So we've talked about, the ability to give back and fill your bucket. We've talked about your professional development and having someone challenge you. But I also found that mentorship is really helpful for me in my life-work balance. And I really try to be mindful of saying life-work versus work-life, because that life aspect is sometimes what we forget about. Burnout happens to all of us. And I think just admitting that burnout happens to all of us wasn't something that I could do until I had a mentor, someone who could say, it's okay, Melissa. It's okay that today wasn't as great. It's okay that your plan went right out the window and tomorrow will be better. And so acknowledging that, in the world of occupational therapy, we all give so much. We use therapeutic use of self, and at times we might feel as though we're just absolutely drained. Having that mentorship to go back to helps to really battle that burnout or compassion fatigue. How do we handle giving so much and not feeling completely depleted at the end of the day and still being able to process all of the things that you're taking in with your clients, your peers, your students, folks that you're working with. So having that mentorship allowed me to process and work through that burnout, that stress that we all manage, so that I could then fill the bucket back up and start again tomorrow. And this is what I was able to do to get through the tough days. I knew that I had a mentor I could call. I knew that I had someone also depending upon me if I was their mentor, and that assisted. And through my mentorship, I was also able to find occupation circles around mindfulness and meditation. And these were things that were not comfortable for me, things I was not good at, things that I really struggled with. But I found that once I was able to start utilizing those strategies, I was able to share a little bit about that with the folks that I work with. And then they shared it with somebody else that they knew, whether personally or professionally. And then they shared it with a client who used it to process, stress and acceptance of whatever was going on in their life. And again, that bucket just kept refilling, and those ripples kept occurring and kept making that difference for each of us. Meditation class was something that was very enjoyable and difficult, but something that I was challenged to do, and I was grateful for that. And I'm finding now that more people are utilizing that as well. And then when I think about occupation circles, I think about paying it forward. And there are 2 occupation circles that I really wanted to share with you all. If we stop and think, sometimes we think an occupation circle needs a label on it. But if you think about what you've done today, you probably had a few occupation circles. You probably had a few informal mentoring experiences throughout your day today. And just recently, I've been really lucky to be part of an occupation circle with another OTA who's part of AOTA's Emerging Leaders Development Program, ELDP. And this is an opportunity to be able to help another OTA grow with her own visibility of her opportunities, and also encourage a lot more engagement of OTAs. Where are OTAs going? How are we using evidence-based practice? How are we making purposeful decisions? How are we advocating for roles? How are we learning how to have more of a collaborative supervision? All of those aspects of being an OTA, she and I have been working the last year in a very formal process together. And I've been able to see her start to take what she's learned and start to give it back to other people in smaller occupation circles. Again, those ripples that are impacting everybody. Additionally, at this last year's conference in Philly, we had an unofficial occupation circle of OTAs where folks came at 7 a.m. with no commitment to receive a CE or anything else. They only came for the pure fact of wanting to be with other people in a mentorship relationship. They showed up very, very early, like I said, 7 a.m., and we networked. We talked about what occupational therapy meant to us. We talked about our roles. We talked about our needs, where we wanted to grow, what we wanted to do as a whole. And it was 17 people of various backgrounds, various experience, all simply sharing in a very positive manner that we've been able to stay connected throughout this year since the past April. And what's fantastic about that and this ability to pay it forward in mentorship is that coming into 2018, we're going to progress that occupation circle into something much more focused that'll actually be on the brochure for AOTA. It'll be an official, has a spot, has a time where people are able to know about it versus just word of mouth, which is what we initially had done. I'm very impressed that 17 people came. But these are some of the ways to pay it forward and also fill that bucket back up with a chance to shine and give back and share ideas with others. And I think what is so important about being able to pay it forward with mentorship is it just simply feels amazing. It's not about, did I give them the right bit of knowledge? It's that relationship with somebody else who's willing to share with you the goods, the bads, the ugly. They're willing to poke you along. They're willing to say, that's a really good idea. Can we talk about that some more? So it's something that's very valuable to each of us. Additionally, paying it forward is, being able, for me, to be able to share it with my team who might not feel like they have the time to be involved. But if I can show them, here's a quick way to be involved on a Monday evening, that's going to help make their day a little bit better and hopefully help somebody else's the next day. All the while thinking about these occupation circles and how it impacts the outcomes. And outcomes are different for each of us, but we have outcomes, kind of like the goals that Karen spoke to. You have your goal, you have your outcome. How are you achieving those outcomes? And lastly, what's so important for me about being able to pay it forward in this environment of healthcare changes for me is learning new approaches to managing change. How do I make change into a positive thing, something that's tolerable for people instead of something that makes people react and get nervous around? So being able to break things down, use good old activity analysis to be able to look at an issue, look at a problem, look at a change, a rule, a procedure, and break it down and say, okay, I can chunk this together and I can begin to learn, I can begin to share, I can identify the education, and I almost go full circle back to mentorship by breaking down the change into what do I need professionally, what do I need personally, and how do I use it to make a better outcome. And I have found for myself that being a mentor and a mentee has given me that opportunity to handle change in my everyday work, which is probably one of the biggest benefits for me that's come out of this. So I hope that that was a little bit of helpful information for you all this evening. I'm really excited to bring on to my next co-presenter tonight, Midge, and she's going to speak with you about some awesome resources, and I'm eager to pass it over to you, Midge.
Thank you very much, Melissa. So my name is Midge Hobbs. I currently don't have one position to speak of, really, hence the clinician, consultant, educator title, but I do find myself in a position where I have fingers in many mentoring pies. And one of the very cool jobs that I have right now is editor of a Mindful Path to Leadership. That's AOTA's self-paced online leadership development series. And the reason I'm mentioning the Mindful Path to Leadership at this point, not just to give it the series a shameless plug, but as a segue for me to discuss mentoring. Just to give you a little bit of background about this, I'm very much a product of AOTA's Emerging Leaders Development Program and its formal mentoring process. While I was enjoying my life as an OT and my career was going well, it wasn't really until I was paired with Maureen Peterson, AOTA's former Chief of Professional Affairs, now retired, through the Emerging Leaders Program back in 2010 that I realized just how powerful having a mentor can be. While I'd had some informal mentors in the past, there was something about experiencing mentoring as a very intentional process, as mindful mentoring, that helped me to really begin to grow professionally. And I think since then, my opportunities to learn, grow, and contribute, both in my career and in service, have at least quadrupled. This includes serving AOTA through the Volunteer Leadership Development Committee and the Emerging Leaders Development Committee, including 3 years as chair of the program. So what happened was I was so inspired by the training and the mentoring process that I wanted everyone to share the love. So essentially I collaborated with Amy, with Maureen, with former AOTA President Ginny Stoffel and Nancy Blair, who's one of AOTA's leadership consultants and the facilitator of some of the formal trainings at AOTA, to develop a mindful path to leadership. And the mission was basically to give all members an opportunity to benefit from some of AOTA's leadership training material. And a mindful path to mentoring as Module 3 is a series that I co-authored with Amy. So what do I think about mentoring? Well, for me, this quote really sums it up. I love this quote because I really believe mindful mentoring has the potential to be life-altering, and that it certainly doesn't just benefit the mentee. I think humans learn best through others, and as OTs, we already inherently know the power of collaboration. We do this every single day in practice. In my experience, an effective mentor can inspire a sense of purpose, add value, and truly support the promise of something greater. And as I said, it's not just the mentee that benefits. I think the reverberations can be widespread when every member feels empowered and sees themselves as a person of influence. Collectively, we are a much, much stronger profession. So In working on a mindful path to leadership and digging into the world of mentoring, Amy and I we got puzzled as to why so many people love the idea of mentoring but don't actually pursue it. This is when we discovered there are many common myths and legends associated with mentoring. So for this webinar, I included our top 7. And probably the most common myth about mentoring is that it's a young novice and Yoda type of relationship. Someone who's at least 312 years older than yourself, perhaps slightly odd-looking, and has all the answers. And you have to be the chosen one to even get a minute in Yoda's presence. And yet, what we've discovered is that there are many, many different types of mentoring collaborations, and they truly do come in all shapes and sizes. Mentors most definitely don't need to be older, and they should really be selected based on needs, experiences, skills, and their ability to provide support. As a career changer, I was pretty late to the OT party, so many of my mentors are actually younger than me. It's also a myth that a really intentional mentoring relationship has to be conducted in person, or be a huge time commitment. Really, I've rarely seen Maureen or Amy in person over the course of the last 7 years since beginning the Emerging Leaders Program, yet they've remained significant influences in my life, and hopefully they haven't just been hiding from me. But whether informal or formal, I think it's really important to establish those ground rules for communication and expectations. Every mentoring relationship is unique and can change over time according to need. So it's really vital to review the expectations and time commitments periodically to ensure everyone's on the same page. Yes, myth number 4, mentoring is a one-way street. I think this one really speaks again to that Yoda myth, thinking of mentoring as an unbalanced relationship, a one-way street. I think this is really one of the most common misconceptions. Yet in my experience, reciprocity is key. Simon Sinek, the motivational author and speaker, says that when anyone asks him the question, will you be my mentor, he responds with, and will you be mine? So it's really important to consider what you will both learn and how you can both grow as a result of the relationship. Here are a few more myths. So I think it's vital to take time to discuss expectations, as I've already mentioned, and determine whether you're a good fit for each other. And it really doesn't have to be a complicated process. It's really, really important. I can't stress this enough, to know the ground rules, to establish the structure, and set up those boundaries. And you also really don't have to have only one mentor at a time, as careers evolve, needs may change, and you may benefit from a number of different influences. Mentors that are able to provide different perspectives. Maybe they have different experiences, and they maybe bring different strengths to the table. One of my emerging leader mentees and a fellow contributor to a Mindful Path to Leadership, Elizabeth Hart, often talks about establishing your own personal board of directors. I love that. It's having a team of people you know and trust that you can call on at different points of your career or your leadership path. People you know will give you an honest perspective and support you. The important thing is to know what kind of support you're looking for. Is it individual, career perspective? Are you looking for skills coaching? Do you want group or peer-based learning? Are you really seeking something that's very task-oriented or experiential? Do you really know that face-to-face works for you, or is virtual relationship more conducive to your needs? I think these are really all good basic questions to consider when you're thinking about a mentoring relationship. And I know that both Karen and Melissa have spoken a lot about the benefits of mentoring. I'd like to just echo some of their sentiments, because I definitely wouldn't be the person, clinician, educator, leader, or mentor I am today if it wasn't for some extraordinary people. For me, I really experienced an increase in confidence as a result of having exposure to new ideas and trusted guidance. There's something really invaluable about knowing someone has your back. On the flip side, having also been a mentor, I'm always delighted by the new and innovative perspectives that I'm exposed to that help me to also learn and grow. And I think I just love knowing that I'm making a contribution. So it's really important to consider where you are in your own career or leadership cycle when thinking about a mindful mentoring relationship and how it may impact your life as a mentor or mentee, or maybe you're considering both. I think it's good to know what's important to you, what kind of challenge you're looking for. Are you looking to learn new skills, refine your practice, develop mastery? Are you really just looking to develop a network or make that contribution? So one of the things I hear people say a lot is, this is all well and good, Midge, but where do I actually start? And I know that a couple of the questions that have come in have been, how do you go about getting a mentor? And it's not like you can just go to rent a mentor and pick up your own Yoda. I always encourage people to consider what their individual needs are and really just think very broadly to begin with. Cast a wide net and look for those connections or inspiring people who may have already interacted with you and experienced your skills, your willingness to commit, your potential, or they've experienced your contributions. Look for people who like, trust, and believe in you. That's all. I always think that's a really great starting point. And even if one of these people may not end up becoming one of your mentors, they may know someone who would be a much better fit, and they may also be willing to introduce you. I also think it's important to investigate formal mentoring programs, not just through AOTA, but also through employer initiatives or state association programs. And even though Karen kind of dispelled the myth about reaching out to a complete stranger when she told her story about Florence Cromwell, I've learned that it's not always easy to approach strangers without an introduction. For those people who aren't necessarily really familiar with your work or the caliber of who you are, more often than not, they will politely decline. People are supremely busy these days, and they may leave you disappointed. So, where do you find out more? So here I go. One last shameless plug for a mindful path to leadership. I had to do it. And in particular, Module 3, mentoring and leadership. But I just want to stress that this is not just people who are thinking about any kind of formal leadership. I think it's really appropriate for anyone who wants to see themselves as a person of influence, who wants to grow and develop and make a contribution. So it doesn't matter whether you're a student, a clinician, a manager, or an educator. I think there's some really cool information in here. You'll learn much more about mentoring than I can possibly cover in 15 minutes, including how to assess your needs, how to find a mentor, how to establish a relationship, set up the structure and boundaries, and how to manage the different stages of the mentoring process. So I think that's about all I have. I'm going to kind of hand things back to Amy to wrap up. Okay.
Thank you so much, Midge. Thank you so much. And thank you to Karen and to Melissa as well. Some of this information I think is so helpful because it's helpful to learn from each of our personal experiences and how mentors have helped us along the way. So we're going to start with questions. And we'll probably get to a few of them this evening, and then we will also be sending out a document later on with any questions that we weren't able to get to as we work to compile them. But we had a question about speaking to the importance of peer mentoring and entry-level programs. And I really think that this is so important to begin to identify this community of individuals that can help support you, whether it's when you go out onto field work or as you enter as a new graduate. And so I would encourage any students who might be on this evening to begin developing that community. And it is in some sorts an occupation circle because you go out and each of your experiences are different, and you might be able to help inform others about what's successful in one place and what may have worked well, what didn't work well. And, the key is making sure that you're always moving forward. And I actually think peer-to-peer mentoring is so important, whether it's in entry-level education or if it's in practice. Being able to really embrace some of those things I think is incredibly important, as well as reaching outside of our profession sometimes and getting some mentorship from people who are from a different perspective. And oftentimes that can be a real wealth of information as you're thinking about different ways to be able to use your occupational therapy skill set. Melissa, I think we have a question that I think this would be great for you. Question about, as a new COTA, how do I get started or get involved in OT more?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think that's from Mariana. Mariana, if I don't answer your question specifically, let's try to connect with each other offline in another way that I could help you a little bit more. But as I saw your question come up, a few things started to come to my mind about how you can get involved. And this is for both OTAs and OTs. I just happen to have a little bit more of a zing to get more OTAs involved as well. Some things that you can do in your local community, give your school a call if you're still in that area or another OTA program. Find out if they have an advisory board. That's a quick way to get involved. The time commitment is not too large, so that's usually meeting twice, maybe 3 times per year in the evening. Additionally is reaching back out to those students or that you went to school with and see if you can make a little journal club, something that you can all do via Skype or FaceTime or, at a local coffee shop, and start reading a journal or OT Practice magazine each month and sit down and talk about it, or Age Up magazine, or anything that might be of interest. Additionally, the OTA listserv on OT Connections is a great way to just reach out. Hey, I'm looking for, a mentor or someone to shoot ideas around with about, oh gosh, I don't know, splinting. Any of those kind of things. And Mariana, there's also the COOL, the COOL, which is a great resource on AOTA's website where you can identify things that are of interest to you as well as your time commitment, depending on what you have going on in life, as a way to get involved. And then lastly, I would say show up for a conference, whether it be your local district conference, your state conference, AOTA, whatever works for your lifestyle, but just show up and start kind of just saying, hey, my name is Mariana. I'm an OTA. I'm looking to connect with other OTAs. I hope those 3 or 4 different ideas help you, and if not, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to chat with you some more.
Thank you, Melissa. Mid, if you wouldn't mind, another question is, as a new graduate, how can we differentiate between a good and a bad mentor?
That's like a whole other webinar in of itself, isn't it?
I know.
I think you have to kind of trust your gut on this one. If you feel like your mentor has your best interest at heart and they're willing to communicate with you, they're willing to listen to you, they're also really willing to listen when you share when things are going well, not so well in particular. I think that's really key. I've had so-called mentors that have not been willing to see it as a partnership. They've kind of seen it as this one-up, one-down process. And anytime I have suggested that, maybe this isn't quite going right for me, and can we review what the expectations are? Can we take another look at the structure of this? And they shut me down, and they want it's their way or no way. Then that's always kind of a big red flag for me. I think a really good mentor is someone who's just always willing to listen and work with you. It comes back down to that collaborative experience always. So that would probably be my short and sweet answer before I do the entire webinar on it.
No, I appreciate that, and I absolutely understand. That's a tough question to be able to answer in just a minute or so. So I would just wanted to say, again, thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it. For those questions that we didn't get to, what we will do is we will work on being able to answer those and get those answers out to all of you who registered, and then they'll also be accessible on AOTA Learn along with the recording. So again, just a reminder to check back later in the week on AOTA Learn for the recording and details on how to access your free CE, and thank you so much for spending some of your evening with us. And to Karen and Melissa and Midge, it is such a pleasure to have been able to work with the three of you on this, and thank you all for being a part of my occupation circle and for all that you do for the profession. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.